99X. It's the Morning X. Barnes and Leslie, you can listen to the radio station, Leslie, any of a myriad of ways.
So many ways.
You got the new 99X app, which when I go to the gym, that's what I use. And you've got Sonos Local, Alexa, Google, Apple Music. So people all over the world are listening, which is awesome because of this topic people all over the world are pissed off about. And I'm talking about our good friends at Delta, who, of course, released all that information a couple weeks ago now that they were really taking away a lot from the frequent flyer program.
Yeah, I understand now they've tweaked some things.
Yeah, tweaked is a very kind way of doing it. So I thought we would go to the end-all, be-all, and that would be the points guy. Say hey to Nick. Good morning, Nick, from the points guy.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, I read you guys' articles all the time and all of your advice that you have out there. And I'm sure when this news dropped, you were everyone there was scurrying around to get their opinions out. I would love to break it down with you. So thanks for coming on.
Well, first and foremost, I think it's really great that they did listen to the customer feedback here. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in the industry for almost 20 years. I've never seen the level of anger that came out of the initial announcement last month.
Agreed.
So the fact that they are listening to customers, I think that's a positive sign. Obviously, these are steps in the right direction. I don't think they're going to ease everyone's concerns, but they definitely are some positive enhancements. And I do think Delta deserves credit for listening to the feedback and responding, albeit maybe not to the level that every flyer wants.
So I guess the biggest thing was the MQD requirements. So what modifications did they make there?
Yeah, that was really what I think sent a lot of people into the ozone here. They significantly increased the amount of money that you need to spend on a yearly basis with Delta in order to earn or maintain your status. And they also got rid of all the other qualification metrics. So now it's only about how you spend. And when they initially announced those tiers, a lot of people said, wait a minute, I now have to spend $35,000 a year on Delta to reach Diamond Medallion. That was the original number. They've since walked them back. It varies about 20% lower than the ones they originally announced, but they are still higher than the thresholds that were in place for this year's qualification. So you definitely are still going to have to spend more money in 2024 than you did in 2023. But they did walk them back a little bit. They reduced those levels. So again,
Nick,
it's nice that they did that. It's still a lot.
For a regular human flying, impossible to hit the number, which is now 28,000. And they had already jacked it up. Remember, it used to be, 12.5, and then it went to 15 or 17.5, then it went to 20. So I feel like 20 is a number that's even very, very hard to hit. I travel nonstop. I barely hit 20. Like that's...
And you travel way more than I do.
And a lot of Europe. And so it's just like, it's not feasible for people to hit that anymore. And it's hard to take status away. You know what I mean? Like you've graduated yourself up and now you're going to roll back. We're talking to Nick from the Points Guy about all of the Delta changes. What else did you find glaring with this walk back statement from Delta?
Well, I think one of the other things that I think is probably the most positive about this walk back is the change to the way they're looking at visiting the Sky Club. I love visiting the Sky Club whenever I travel with my family. Previously, they had announced a really significant cap on the number of visits that you could make to the lounges. They have since increased that number for credit card holders who have the top tier reserve cards, as well as the American Express Platinum and Business Platinum cards. I think it's not just the number, though. They also have now changed how they define a visit. So before, if you had a connecting flight and you visited the Sky Club in your origin city and Atlanta, for example, that would count as 2 visits. And on the Platinum card, that's 1/3 of your visits for the entire year on a single one-way connecting flight. So now they have changed it where they're counting a one visit as a 24-hour period, whether you go into one lounge or 3 different lounges. So that's definitely a positive change. There are still caps, though. So for those super frequent flyers, you're definitely still going to want to pay attention because now you're limited to either 10 or 15 days of Sky Club access in a calendar year.
But this has been so all over the map because earlier in the year they said, okay, you can't go to the Sky Club when you land. Like they're like, you can't go in multiple times in a day.
No.
And then they rip us back to 10 if you're on a Delta Reserve card. Then they push it back to 15, but say now you can go twice. I don't really ever go twice. I don't really ever go when I get to the city I'm going to. I guess people who are like delayed maybe, or they're there early, they want to, grab another bagel, whatever. But why all this disruption instead of doing the research and trying to figure out the right way to come out with it once instead of all of this back and they could still pull this back.
Yeah, and to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me for further tweaks to come over the next years, especially this doesn't actually take effect until 2025. So you do still have some time to actually enjoy the full unlimited access. But Delta really is facing an issue here in the sense that they've invested in their clubs. The clubs are nicer, in my opinion, than a lot of other airline lounges in the United States. That creates more demand, which limits capacity. And there's only so much space in airports that Delta can expand to. So Delta's really trying to hit that sweet spot of restricting access, but doing it in a way that will still make it accessible for their most frequent flyers. It's a really hard line to walk. And to be honest, I don't know that Delta will ever get it right, because a Sky Club could be empty at 5 o'clock in the morning, but then it's slammed at 5 o'clock at night. And how do you help ensure that you're really giving your most loyal, most valuable flyers access to this really nice club experience? It's really challenging, and I think Delta has struggled a little bit at hitting that sweet spot.
What happens to all these people that have acquired all these points on their Delta card? I mean, I did not have a great experience the last time I was in one of the Delta Sky rooms. It was so overcrowded. But what happens to everyone else?
Good point about the MQMs, because I'm sitting on a couple hundred, almost 300,000 of those.
You are?
And,
wow.
And that goes away in the program, so they're no longer a metric. What happens to those?
Yeah, this has been another big bone of contention, especially for those who do travel a ton, who have gone well beyond the Diamond Medallion status. Those rollover MQMs, the distance you now fly with Delta essentially doesn't really matter for status qualification or for earning miles. And that's been the case for a while. So your rollover MQMs are now going to be converted, and you have the option of converting them into either redeemable miles or into MQDs. A lot of people are not happy with how those have been, those will be converted when this option does go live. They did add another option where now you can choose to essentially extend complimentary status for a year for every 100,000 MQMs you have. But I think the big issue here, the broader issue, is that in the past, you have loyal Delta flyers who maybe weren't spending a ton of money, but they were still flying a lot of miles, a lot of button seat miles. And those members are now really going to be at a disadvantage because the MQMs are gone. It's no longer a part of the program. It's all about spending. So it will be interesting to see how people react, and if they do decide to vote with their wallet and take their business elsewhere.
So I was reading on the Points Guy that if the whole 100,000 MQMs, they're saying, and please confirm this, whatever the status you've earned for next year, which was that $20,000 threshold for Diamond, if you earned Diamond for next year and you have 200,000 MQMs, you can now be Diamond 2 more years after that as a kind of grandfathered rollover of your miles to that value. Is that true?
Yes, but it has to be the rollover miles that you would have. So it's above and beyond. If you earned 100,000 MQMs this past year, my understanding is that's not going to be enough. You have to have 100,000 rollover miles in order to keep your status. So again, that's my understanding of it. And again, that's one of the conversion options that's set to go live in early 2024.
Oh boy.
This is just such a burden. Okay, I'm feeling like I'm going to bail on my Delta Reserve card because I just don't see the value anymore. It's just easier to go ahead and just buy whatever ticket you want. Whether if you want to sit in first, then just buy first and then avoid all the other crap. You're still going to spend way less than $28,000 in a year, right?
A lot of people are looking at making that exact same decision. We have some really loyal Delta flyers who, before these changes were announced, would have never considered being essentially a free agent when it comes to airline elite status.
Yeah.
And it's also worth noting that we have seen some airlines try to swoop in and fill the gap. JetBlue launched a pretty cheeky campaign called Status on the DL, a little, swipe at Delta there, where you can actually submit. And I took advantage of this as a Platinum Medallion member. I now have Mosaic status with JetBlue. So next year, I'm going to test the waters. I'm going to see a little bit of, whether the grass is greener on the other side. But at the end of the day, if Delta is the best option, most convenient, best price, they still have a solid experience. So I'll pick them in those cases. But I think my years of being a Platinum or a Diamond Medallion are sadly coming to an end.
Yeah, well, Nick from The Points Guy, thank you very much for kind of clearing some of that up. This is all just making me sick. It's making me ill.
Yep, you're not the only one.
The joys of flying.
Thank you.
Of course, thanks for having me.
The Morning X with Barnes and Leslie. 99X.